Welcome back. Thank you very much for our final hour. So for a question here, John is asking about BYOD MTR. I suggest you go and talk to the vendor that's providing that. BYOD is obviously bring your own device. I can't tell you what MTR is. It's something about Teams rooms, I think. Basically what it probably means is you have a device that's user independent that will sit in a room that any user can use, but I'd have to look it up. So as for the security, yeah, good luck with that. Again, the way to secure it would be to use mobile device management, MDM, MAM, and also endpoint manager as well. So lots of ways to do that. It is a little bit specialized because of that product, but it can be done. All right, recording's on. Yes, good. Okay, no other questions? Yep, okay, so let us go into labels quickly. Again, remember we were talking about the sensitivity, so I think protection is effectively what sensitivity is talking about. The labels, as I mentioned, persist with the document. They will live forever with the document. They're embedded into the document. The document will verify that when the document is accessed. We had a look at the options here to tag a document. I showed you that. We also get the metadata written on the top of the document, especially if we've got DLP style content in there, so we can use the DLP to link into our labeling as well. So we can do that on our emails, we can do that on our files, but we can also do it and use our devices to apply and to watch for DLP as well. So extremely powerful. We looked at the policies here, and remember that a label can also retain and delete documents. It can determine how long you want to keep the document as well as delete it. So it's a good policy, obviously, to have a cleanup as well. If you don't need the file, then probably a good idea to remove it. So that's why a policy, a retention policy that actually goes in and deletes something is also a very good option for you as well. We can, again, alert on all of those. We can get information about all of those. All right, so let us talk about conditional access now. Okay, hang on, we've got a question for Farzed. Could you please explain which Microsoft security courses, certs are suitable for security analysts? So again, at the end of the day, there are lots of options here. You can do the SC 900, the SC 200, the SC 300, but if you want Defender, I would suggest the MS 500 is probably the one that you want to look at doing. There's lots and lots of exams, and they do overlap somewhat. So I'd be looking at the SC 200, I think it is, and probably the MS 500 is your option. But again, basically go in and just go through the Microsoft do certification. So put into your search engine, Microsoft Defender certification, and out will jump probably the MS 500, I would suggest. Okay, so let's talk about conditional access. So what conditional access, the role that it plays is it analyzes who is logging in, what they're logging in from, where they're logging in from, and what they're trying to get access to. It then applies policy, machine learning to determine whether the users are then in fact allowed to do that and what control they had. So whether they're blocked, whether they limit their access, whether they require MFA, force their password to do reset, or things like blocking legacy protocols. So again, the idea is to identify the user, identify the device, the app that they want to get to, the location, then apply policy controls, allow, block, or enforce some additional security, and then restrict what is basically capable here. We can do that with Microsoft data, but we can also integrate with third-party apps to do this as well. So it is possible to, again, use conditional access to enforce that sort of policy around third-party SaaS-based applications, so cloud-based applications. You can do it to an extent with on-prem if you go through that portal, the myapps.microsoft.com, myapps.microsoft.com. You can also enforce it that way. So at the end of the day, once again, we are faced with creating policies for our environment. So the idea here is to create appropriate policies. Now, Microsoft's recommendation, they have, I think, 5 recommended policies as a default. Absolutely implement those. Now, the other thing to remember here is less policies is better. Like a firewall, you want an all-encompassing policy. You don't want to have all these exceptions. Well, if it's Fred and it's Thursday and he's on his Mac PC, then he can do this, right? You want to have an encompassing policy with few exceptions so that they can't be exploited and you don't end up with conflicts and, oh, hang on, how does that work? I can't remember, and someone can slip through the net there. Okay, now remember that if you want to use conditional access, which is part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium, you're going to have to disable legacy auth, right? So make sure, what is it? The basic protection, the whatever that's called, I can't remember. Sorry, memory blank. So the thing we talked about yesterday, security defaults. If you have security defaults enabled, they will clash with conditional access. And when you're ready to do conditional access, you'll have to turn off those security defaults. Now, the end result when you run conditional access is going to be, you want this to be the majority of access. So only a user with the right login, the right password, the right location, the right device can get access to the data. So any other time you want to see something like this. And again, this is all controlled by policy. It's a matter of determining that policy, what makes sense, and again, how to go in and control and create these policies. So what I'll do here is I will show you basically 2 things. That's not the best one. This one, is that the best one? No, this one's probably a better one. Let me pull down and show you and expose to the wide world the production environment, because that's generally the best one. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to log into Azure, because I prefer doing this through Azure. There's a couple of different ways to get to conditional access, but I want to highlight something first. So let me go in here and go to conditional access, right? So Azure AD conditional access. You'll see in here that I can't get to it. Okay, so this is not good. Why is this? Well, the reason is because I have implemented something called Privileged Identity Management, PIM. So this is escalation on demand. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is go into my endpoint manager. Again, I've got minimal capabilities here. If I go into my tenant administration, if I go into my Azure AD privilege management, PIM, if I go into my roles, you'll see that I've got eligible roles. I've got 2 roles here, global admin and group administrator. So again, if I go over here and try to go to my Defender portal, where all my Defender for endpoint is, you watch what happens. So again, what's going to happen here in a sec is it's basically going to say, don't have rights, sorry, you can't come in, because effectively you're not an administrator or a global administrator or whatever. It'd be really nice if it did actually say that. It looks as though it's trying. See what happens here, right? So I'm not authorized to access the portal, right? So believe me, I'm nothing but a normal user. But what I can do here with PIM is, once I've set it up, I can run into a telephone booth, push the activate button here, and change into my Superman suit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, look, I want to have access for, what's the time now? So let's say I want access for an hour, and then I'm going to say demo time. We give a reason, and then I push the button to activate. So this is going to go through an activation and escalation process to lift me to global administrators. All it's doing is changing the role. I don't have to, it's not another user, it's just elevating my role temporarily for that period of time. Now, I could set this up so that when I elevate the privilege, it has to go through a third party. So imagine you have your technicians who need to work on a customer's environment, as we talked about early on. You can set up PIM so that they have to go through this escalation process, they have to use MFA, so you can force PIM to require MFA when they want to escalate, and also you can force the fact that it goes through a third-party verifier like you. So, for example, it could be the PIM request is made by the engineer who has to verify their credentials no matter what with with MFA. It is then escalated to the service manager who then approves that. It's all audited, it's all tracked. And again, it's only for a certain amount of time. So if we go and have a look at active assignments here, you'll see that I'm a global administrator. I'm activated, and I'm activated till 5:28 today. And if I want, I can go in here and deactivate. Now, in theory, if I go to my Defender for ATP now, I should be allowed in, all things being equal. But because of caching, we may have an issue. I may need to close the browser, but there you go. So now I'm in, and I have the capability to get to basically everything that I need. All right, so if we go back to here, actually, let's open portal.azure.com. So that's what PIM is in a nutshell. So let me go back into Portal and let me show you the conditional access rules that I have in play. Okay, so let's go back to conditional access. Again, this is where you get the token or the caching thing can cause a problem. So I just refresh the page there. So you'll see here, these are the policies that I have in place. So the standard ones Microsoft is recommending is to block global administrators on sign-in risk. So sign-in risk is evaluated as to whether I'm logging in from a risky IP address, doing bad things or unknown IP addresses. I'm blocking legacy auth. I'm blocking that at the boundary. I'm also working with sign-in risk. I've also got compliant devices. So what that means is even if I have a successful login, I can't get access to my data until I've got a compliant device. So again, that one yesterday where we talked about, or someone mentioned the fact of someone creating a duplicate portal to try and trick users. The idea here is, again, you can use policies like compliant devices and so on to trip these sort of things. I can use approve apps, and I can also set protection policies. Now, I've set those two to report only, and I'll show you the reason why. Now, if I go into, this is a rule unique to me. Okay, so let's go in and drill into this rule. So I'm targeting this rule at a specific group of users. Okay, so it's targeted at a specific group. I can also exclude people, so I've chosen to exclude people as well. What will this apply to what application? So if I'm looking to get to any cloud application, this rule is going to apply, but you'll see that I can also, again, control something there. And here are the conditions, right? So there's no user risk, there's no sign-in risk configured. I'm supporting any device platform. So again, you can go in here and target, this only applies to iOS, Android, good old Windows Phone is still in there. And the locations, right? So here's the locations, right? So what I'm saying here is this rule is allowed for every location, but notice that I've got exclude options here. So I'm excluding a number of predefined locations here. Okay, so remember that. These are the client apps. So you'll see here browser, also mobile apps, Exchange, all that sort of stuff as well. Device state, again, I can control the device state. Is it compliant? Is it not compliant? Now, the kicker here is this one here. I'm blocking access. So what this rule does is it says effectively for this one user, me, with all accessing any cloud app, okay, and with appropriate sign-in risk and dialing in from a trusted IP address, allow access. But the rule is written like a firewall rule, unless I'm logging in as myself to the apps that I've requested from an IP address that is listed, then block the access. So that's how you do it by country or location for those that are interested. Okay, now you can do that by geolocation. You can do that basically by anything. Okay, so lots and lots of options here. So I like this compliant devices one as well. So let's go in here and have a look at the conditions. So you'll see the condition here is any device, any platform. Okay, and if I go in here and have a look at it, all right, any device, any platform, I can, exclude it. And then if I go down to grant, you'll see here, require device to be marked as compliant. So that means it has to has to be a compliant device for me to connect. Now, can anybody think where you might get into issues if you select this rule? If you use this rule and you only allow compliant devices, where can this trip you up? See if anybody can guess. This was a lesson that I learned when I set this up the first time. See if anybody can guess where this rule may trip you up if you have enabled it. No, not BYOD. No, where this tripped me up was when I wanted to run up machines, because when you join an Azure AD machine the first time, it's generally not compliant. It hasn't got its patches, it hasn't got its updates, it hasn't got, all this stuff applied to it. It hasn't got disk encryption, it hasn't got TPM installed. So you may want to create a group, as we talked about, and put your devices that you're spinning up, that you're joining and getting ready to be used, into a different group that avoids, this sort of compliance, this sort of conditional access rule. Because I found when I'm running up devices that aren't 100% compliant yet, then it kicked in and blocked me out and I couldn't do things. So again, just be aware of that. So you can put these into report mode so you can see what they're doing. And one of the most powerful tools is this what if. So what I can do here is I can say, okay, select a user. Where am I? I think I'm down here somewhere. Here I am. So I go select any cloud app. Where am I going to call in from? 203.17.36.1, which is not where I'm calling from. And then I would say Australia. And then I can put in, what platform I'm running, cloud apps, And if I go what if, it's going to spit out a result of what policies were applied. So you'll see here, the block GAs would be applied, the block legacy auth would be applied. These are report only, and the policies that would not apply because of that basically are here. So this what if tool is super handy to work out what applies, when it applies, how it applies. So again, take advantage of that. The other advantage you've got down here is under, where is it? There's a reporting, insights is what I wanted. You want to go into insights and reporting. So the insights and reporting here is going to give you some nice detail on, again, who logged in, how they logged in. So I've done this obviously. So all enabled policies, all users. So I'm going to get information about who logged in, where they logged in from. Okay, so why am I logging in from the US here? Any ideas? Why is there one login here from the US? Any suggestions? Well, basically it's a virtual machine, so that's why. And you'll see here I get all sorts of really cool information in a nice workbook here. So again, really, really cool. So again, that's in insights and reporting. You can use diagnose and solve problems. This is where you set up your named locations. So you'll see my named locations here. So again, I've defined Australia as country IPs, which you can define by particular countries. And again, one of the little traps, or one of the little annoying things that I found with my Windows 365 was I had to change my my conditional access policy to allow my Windows 365 PC, because that was coming from, they're actually hosted in Singapore. So I had to change my rule to allow conditional access, to allow that PC access to my tenant, because I'd set that to lock it to Australia, and that PC was actually in Singapore. Hopefully it'll end up back in Australia eventually, but for the time being, that's where it ended up. Now, the important thing to remember here with conditional access is that conditional access is evaluated after successful login, okay? It is not designed to be a mechanism for blocking denial of service or password spray attacks, okay? It is designed to verify verify the login after the username, after the password, after MFA. That's when conditional access is applied, not before. Right, so remember, this is again this defense in depth strategy. All right, so are there any questions on that conditional access? We are running out of time, unfortunately, so I do need to move along. I don't see any major questions coming through, so let me power on. So device security is going to be handled by Enterprise Mobility, MDM, with Intune. So that's going to be Endpoint Manager. Again, how many slides have I got on this? So let's just rip through this and I'll show you the demo. You can protect your devices in two ways, using device management and or application management, which means the device management is you apply policies that, for example, turn off the camera, allow you to do remote wipe, verify the operating system. That's device management. But you can also do application management. So application management allows you to control the individual apps on a device. And this is typically what we want for, BYOD style, BYOD style scenarios. So let me see if I can show you what MAM kind of look like here. If I can get my iPad to function, give you, unfortunately, I think this has sort of ruined it, but anyway, let me have a look. No, it's not that one. It's this one here. Let me join the meeting on my iPad. I will add this device. My microphone's off, my audio's off, and let me share, share the screen here so you can get a feeling for share screen and start broadcast. And let's just check to see what everybody's seeing. Okay, hopefully. There we go. Look at that magic. Okay, so here's my device here. I'm going to go into Edge. Okay, now you'll see this is the first capability. It's asking me for a PIN number to put in to give me access to get to Edge, to get to in any corporate app. All right, so this is application management, MAM, in Power here. So since I've already gone into Teams, let us go into said chat. Let me see if I can copy any of this. Come on, allow me to copy. I think that should have copied. So let me go out here. So I've copied from a corporate application. I've copied corporate data from a corporate application. If I go to a non-corporate app, just being Apple Notes, and try and paste in, you'll see I get that message there. Your organization's data cannot be pasted here. So the idea with this is that this is exactly what we see on the screen here, in the fact that I'm basically preventing data from being moved from a corporate app to a non-corporate app. So we can layer MDM and MAM on top of that to do that. They're all driven, again, largely by policy from Endpoint Manager. So application management is going to allow us to enforce data access requirements. Can I access this? Where can I access this? It's going to prevent data leakage by protecting things like OneDrive that are synced locally. It's going to give us encryption of that data at rest, no matter where it is, and give me application level wipe. So example from that is if I go to here, go back to, oh, mouse is gone, come back mouse. Go back to my roles here, go back to my devices, and you'll see my Windows devices here. And when they come up, you'll see here that I have devices, they're marked compliant or not. I have a, where's my Surface? This is a test machine here. So this is a complete test machine that I use regularly. You'll see that what I'll get across the top here is that I can retire it, wipe it, delete it, force a sync, restart it remotely. And if I go down here, you'll see that I also get autopilot reset, which allows you to do a nicer fresh install. I use that all the time when testing. So we've got BitLocker key rotation lights. I've got full control of it. And I can also grab the diagnostics. This is a super handy way to capture, a whole lot of information about that machine quickly and easily. I can, for example, get an inventory of the hardware. I can look at what apps are on that device. I can look at its compliance policies, its device policies. I can look at, what apps are configured on it. Look at its recovery keys. I can also look at its diagnostics. and I can, manage its, the desktop suite on it as well. So extremely powerful and convenient of what I can do with application management. So we're getting to the point in the day where we need to begin to round up. At the end of the day, there are so many capabilities here for you to protect. The majority of these come with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. We've mentioned a lot of them. Quickly, Windows Information Protection is a simple way to protect containers worth of corporate data. So in this case, you will see you can use Windows Information Protection to prevent data from copied to a USB drive. So the way that you think about this is corporate data has the policy applied. The policy says you can move data, copy data, work with data that is in a corporate container. So the corporate container is the PC, the BitLocker is protecting it. But when I plug in a USB removable storage, that is not a corporate container. I've defined that as not corporate. Now, if I try and move corporate data to a non-corporate location, then Windows Information kicks in and says, nope, can't do that. Policy doesn't allow you to do it. So that's how simple it is to protect data from being moved to non-corporate locations. Again, requires policy, requires definitions, requires setup, but once set up, extremely powerful in its capabilities, again, that few other providers can do. We've talked about the Azure Information Protection and the labeling. We went through that. Another one I'll call out for you quickly is something called attack surface reduction. ASR rules are built into endpoint manager policies, but you can also implement them manually if you want. So if we say PowerShell, PowerShell, PowerShell 3 times, magically PowerShell will appear. And if you go to my free offering there and run, for example, the script that I've got there called Win10 ASR get, this will tell you what ASR settings are turned on your local machine. So ASR is largely aimed at preventing child processes being launched from macros, from Adobe Acrobat. And again, it's built into effectively every version of Windows 10. You can turn it on manually if you want, but the best way to do it is with policy. But if you, again, take advantage of that free script that I've got, so Win10 ASR get will tell you whether it's turned on your machine, and happy days, it is fully on this machine. So mark down ASR to have a look at. So a quick run through of some add-ons for you. Defender for Endpoint. Again, we could spend a whole session on this, but what I'm going to do here is, again, I will bring up the console quickly, the standalone console, just to give you a feel for what it looks like. So this is Defender for Endpoint. You'll see you get a nice summary here, but what you also get, for example, is this threat analytics. So this is the benefit of Microsoft and all the signals it's getting, looking at the latest threats and then looking through your environment and seeing whether any of the current threats apply to any machines that is currently in your environment. You'll see I've got no threats there from the current threats that are available. Again, you can alert on all of this. These are all the machines that I have in my inventory. You'll see that I've got Windows machines. I've got so this is a 2008 R2 server sitting in the corner as a NAS. You'll see that I've got my Android phone on there. I've got my iPhone on there protected. I've got iPad. And then if I go into, this is the machine that I'm on here, Surface Pro 7. You'll see that I get lots of information about the machine. I get any alerts that have happened on that machine, right? So these are the alerts that have happened over time. You'll see that it's been resolved. It was remediated automatically, blah, blah, blah. I get a timeline of when, said events happen, and I can, go in here and drill into, these items, and I get a full list of what happened at that time period. So I'll get a step-by-step list here when it works it out of exactly what happened during that time period that I've just selected there, so I can drill in and get more information. It's going to give me security recommendations, basically update your software. So Edge needs a bit of an update. Application Guard needs to be turned on. So I need to go in and update Edge. So I just go up here and then update it and it should be good to go. You'll see it gives me a software inventory. So I can see all the software that's on there. I can also see the weaknesses and any threats against that. any discovered vulnerabilities, any missing KBs. I can isolate my device from the network if it is determined to be infected or causing problems. And you can see that I can also initiate scans, collect information, and I can run a live response session. So that allows me effectively to log in behind the scenes, run PowerShell, do DIRs, look at applications and do that sort of stuff. Here's my alerts queue. This is going to tell me that, for example, these are the threats that have happened. So I can drill into this threat here. I can go in and say, yep, that was a true alert, and the status is resolved, and the classification was a true alert, and the determination was that it was unwanted software, and now that is basically, closed off, and I can move on to the next incident. Okay, I can do or automated remediations take place. You can see here that this is normally me testing, things. If I drill into this investigation here, you'll see that it gives me this blowout chart of what's happening. One entity was found, what the results were. You'll see that this was the alert that was generated. It basically took 26 minutes in total since the item happened, and it was resolved. These are the devices occurred on. This is the evidence. So all the files, all the drivers that were, part of that, and I can go in and go hunt from there and do further investigation. Okay, so I get lots of information here, and I can drill into all the entities. So these were the files that were available, the processes, the services, the drivers. This is going to allow me to capture that. And if I have a look at the log here, this is, again, all the events in sequence, so I can work through them and see exactly what happened at every single point in time. So that's the automated investigations. I've also got the ability to do web protection here with Defender, so I can go in and set up web protection. So as mentioned, when I go to gambling.com.au, for example, you'll see it flash up and then go, whoop, it's blocked. So again, that's happening here. And I'm getting that filtering capability in there. So 24 content filters, and you've got automated options, and you can add your own custom ones in there if you want. All right, so you've got partner applications that you can hook into. You've got threat and vulnerability management. You've got your software inventory, your remediation, your weaknesses, the event timeline, all that sort of stuff. Is available. You've got a lab that you can pull up. So if you want to go in and see what these sort of things do in a lab environment, all of that's built in there as well. So again, super powerful tool that if you haven't looked at. So the announcement from Microsoft is there is now a standalone, or there will be shortly, a standalone P1 and P2 license. All right, so before it was E5 or a complete standalone, but now there is going to be a P1 and a P2 license. The P1 would be the perfect add-on to Microsoft 365 Business Premium, in my opinion. Okay, is there a Defender for mobile? The Defender for mobile, Paul, is already out. It's been out for probably about 6 months now, so I've got it running on all my devices, but you do need the full Defender for endpoint backend to make it do anything, but I have had that on my devices for 6 months now. EDR, yes, it does include EDR, so I can't go into all of the specifics, but it includes EDR, and it will integrate, with all the environments in there as well. The other one I'll show you is Cloud App Security. I do need to go in here and tidy up some stuff, so let's go in there, and where is it? Cloud App Security. Now, you do get a portion of this with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. You don't get the full Monty, you get a component of it. The component that you get with Microsoft 365 Business Premium is what they call App Discovery. That allows you to look at, for example, if we go up here, this is all the App Discovery. So Cloud App Discovery dashboard. So I can use this, for example, to go in here and say, okay, what apps have I been using, or what apps have my workstations been using? So here's a list of all the workstations. So let me go in and filter the traffic. So I'm going to see which applications, SaaS-based applications, are using the most traffic. So you'll see here 3.9 gig to SharePoint, 3.2 to Exchange, Streams, pretty popular. And you'll also notice here you get a rating, right? So that is an evaluation based on, does it have SOC, HIPAA, EDR, GDPR, all that sort of stuff. So what I do here is, one of the things I do is I sort by this, but I sort in the reverse manner. and I look for bad applications, right? So let's see if we can find any here. So you'll see this one here, right? Anyview.com, advertising, rating 3. Notice how the bank's not too far away, but anyway, let's keep going. What the hell is this Yotta thing? Who knows? And the idea then is you'll see like before I can sanction it or I can block it. So now what I can do is I can block it so that the users won't be able to, and it won't be pushed through to the users. So for example, people who are running some of the Microsoft Store apps have ads pushed to them. Some of those ads I've found to be a little bit dodgy. So I'm, again, blocking those in my environment. You can look at the IP addresses, where the traffic's going. You can look at the individual users. So they're the IPs in play. They're the users in play, so I can see who's downloading what. I can look at the devices, so what device is downloading the most. So if I have a look here, unsurprisingly, probably it's going to be this machine here. So the machine I'm on now, the main machine, 17 gig versus 3.8 on my other desktops. So that's basically what you get here with Microsoft 365 Business Premium. The full version gives you the capability to go in and set, to use templates. Again, Microsoft provided templates, okay, and then you turn those templates into policies to go and say, okay, well, I want to be alerted when a single user does a mass download of data. So this policy is going to query the logs and then basically send an alert. Okay, it's going to let me know. And if I go and have my look at my alerts, if we have a look here, hopefully I won't embarrass some people who are on the call here, but you'll see here that there was a failed login in a couple of cases here. Right, so you'll see that the IP address is mentioned. So let's pick this one and see. So again, somebody who I think is on the call here has tried to accidentally or in real life log into my tenant, and all I can say is you've been tracked. So the alerts are very, very powerful in what they can do. I can take automated action. I can create my own queries up here. I can do lots and lots of really powerful things here. So this one here, here's an impossible travel. So that's telling me that someone tried to log in from 144, 168, and also from the US and this address within 268 minutes, which is impossible. So what I would do here is I would go, you know what, I'm going to close that alert. It's a true positive. They didn't get in, but I'm going to close it off, having investigated and happy with it. Now, the other thing here is we can also look at the activity log. So we talked about the unified audit log. In here, this is far more powerful. So you've got much, much better filtering and reporting options up the top. And basically, this gives me, again, every single command, every single action that has taken place in my tenant. So this is really the activities, the low-level activities, and I can drill into here and get the IP address, get the actions, see where it's come from, drill into it. This is just fantastic information. It really is. Cannot speak highly enough about it. And I can also look at my file activity. So what's happening with files, sharing files, internal, out, what's being opened, what's being closed. So I can see all the activity on individual files. So all of this, I think, is a must-have application. So if you are looking at Microsoft, your tenants, I think the full version of Cloud App Security for your environments is basically super important and a must-have for environments. And the good thing I like is you can go to the dashboard here with the full version, and it will tell you, a nice summary here. Who have I got to investigate? What OAuth apps do I need to look at? So again, the full version certainly is worth, in my opinion, every single penny. I've shown you privileged identity management. Let me quickly show you identity. And again, these are not part of Azure AD. They're part of Azure AD. So they're not part of Microsoft 365 Business Premium. They are part of E5. Okay, so all of this is E5 stuff. So you'll see here that I can look at my user risk policy. So I can set up the policy basically to take action. But the real power of it here is if I go and look at my reports, so I can see if I've had any risky users logged in. So I'm a risky user. Okay, it's going to tell me what the risky sign-ins were, when did this happen, where did it happen, and then I can take action on that. So it's the next level up for analysis, so you can look at risk detection. So let's go and have a look at risk detection. So there's none in there, unfortunately. Let's have a look at users at risk, see if anybody's in there. Yep, so you'll see here, I'm in here as a global administrator. Again, I can go in here and drill into this. Alert on user risk above and beyond this sort of level. So this, again, to me is an absolute must-have. It's just such a powerful capability and provides, that integration. So that's called Azure Identity Protection. Again, part of E5 and Azure AD P2. So the idea here is that the last one that I'll show you here is my absolute favorite. It's Azure Sentinel. So in a nutshell, what Azure Sentinel will do is Azure Sentinel is a SIEM tool. It's an investigation and event monitoring tool in the cloud. And what it basically gives you is a summary of all the incidents from all of the things we've been talking about. Okay, so if you go in here and have a look, this is the current production tenant. You'll see here that I'm ingesting almost 1 million logs. You can see in here that these are the events it wants me to. I left these in there to go and have a look. So if we go in here and have a look at this one here, this failed external login, remember this showed up in Cloud App Security. If I go in and click on it, you will see, oh, that one's me. So what I can do is go in here and I'll assign that. Oops, sorry. I'll assign that to me and save that. And then I will close this off for you. Let's go and find the one that I want. And we'll say that was the 9. I really should investigate it, but we'll get to that. Let's go in and find the other one. So if I refresh this, okay, let's have a look here. Maybe this one is the one that I want. Select here. So again, here's this same bubble up from Cloud App Security. And if I want, I can go in and select investigation. You'll see this looks very much like Defender. So we get this capability to get, again, more information from these related items. We can look at the IP address, view the full details of the IP address. So again, we get a lot of detail in here. And this is all just bubbling up from the connections that I've set with Azure Sentinel. So I've gone in here and created connectors. This is where the data is coming from. I've just created connectors typically to Microsoft services, the Microsoft services that I have. All right, so you see those. And then I've run analytics rules over the top of it, which are typically just queries, KQL or Custo queries. Where's one with a Custo query that I can show you? Where's one with a Custo query? Let me quickly, what about one of these? Here's the actual query that it's running. It's running across the data that has been ingested, and then takes an action. Now, the other really cool thing about this is that I get a number of workbooks in here. Okay, so these workbooks, think of them as like Power BI style reports. So let us find Azure AD sign-ins. Let's have a look at that. View the Save Workbook. And this is basically a visualization of all the queries or all the queries that I can do. And I can build this, edit it. I can post this to a dashboard at the top of Azure. Super powerful in what it can do, and the data is very easy to create this and extend this. So you can see there's a huge amount of information. And if I want, I can, and these are all pre-built, I can go up here and say, I want to have a look in the last hour, what's happened in the last hour. It will update with that relevant information, allow me to drill into it. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time left, but please go in and have a look at Azure Sentinel. Now, what I will show you here is multi-tenant access. So I've set up Azure Lighthouse. You'll see that I have 2 Azure Sentinel tenants that I'm monitoring. So what I can do is I can select both of these, and now I can go up to view incidents, and this will now show me an aggregated view of all the incidents across those 2 tenants and tell me which directory it is. And I can go in here, obviously, and filter this down. So this is your single pane of glass across all the incidents from Cloud App Security, from DLP, from AIP, from everything that we've looked at so far, right, from multiple tenants in one place. So this is the absolute top of the tree. and then you can take actions and things based on that. And if you want, as I've shown before, you can go in and create your own dashboards with whatever analytics makes sense, customize that, and then export them, clone them, edit them to suit your heart's content. So extremely powerful in what it can actually do. So only a couple more slides. Let's power through these. We talked about Cloud App Security. Basically, it's an advanced form of alerting. It's got far more control, far more granularity. It is the preferred option to be alerting and monitoring for security issues. We talked about privileged identity management. That was where I escalated my privileges to global admin for the hour, so I could show you all this sort of stuff. Really, really capable tool, built into all Microsoft environments. And to me, this is one of the best solutions against supplier attacks. So if you have a technician, they can escalate for a time period. It's all ordered, it's all tracked, so you know exactly what happened, when they escalated, and it can be approved by an intermediate party. Azure Identity Protection was where we looked at that sign-in risk and then took actions based on that. We had a look at that. We talked about Azure Sentinel and the reporting that you can get out of it. And again, the cost for Azure Sentinel, if you just look at sucking in the basic cloud logs from things like a Cloud App Security, Defender, and so on, the cost to do that, it cost me about $4 a month to suck in the logs from cloud-only applications. So it's very, very cheap to start off. And I think that's so if we go back and we have the 3 levels, so the base level is you should be doing out of the box. The second level is the policies, DLP, AIP, Defender for Office. Well, those are the policies, that's your value add. The third value add, the premium option, is configuring MCAS and things like Azure Sentinel for your customers and monitoring and taking basically providing a SOC level capability, but doing it in an intelligent way. All right, so again, you'll get a copy of all these slides after the fact, and with that, there are the resources. I'm 5 minutes over time. I do apologise for that, but again, as you hopefully appreciate, there's lots and lots of information in there. So let me go back and have a look. Maximum number of devices that can be managed under a single license, unlimited, as I said yesterday. Defender for Endpoint, the way it's licensed is it's licensed 5 devices per user, much like Office. So one Defender for Endpoint license allows each person with that license to have 5 devices that are managed and monitored. If you use Azure Defender or Azure, for identity, those sort of things, their licensing does vary as well. But for Defender for Endpoint, 1 user, 5 devices, much like Office, so very simple. You found me on the weekend in Nigeria once. There you go. Well done, Craig. What you do in Nigeria stays in Nigeria, obviously. So feel free to share that with everybody in the chat if you so choose, but we are still recording. How do you get the data into Cloud App Security? Okay, so the data can get into Cloud App Security in 2 ways. You can use Defender. So Defender will put an agent which will then report up to all Cloud App Security automatically. Again, integrated solution, love that. You can also import your firewall logs manually if you so choose, or you can do them, you can set it up to do that automatically. So if we go back to, quickly, just to answer that, if you go back to Cloud App Security, maybe this is not the best one to show you because it will want to do that. So where's my other one? So in here, if I go to Cloud App Security, and that'll complain because it's, oh no, here we go. No, it's complaining about, let me get rid of that. So this is not the full Cloud App Security, but I'll show you how you pull in the logs. So if we go up to the option up here, okay, we go up to our Discovery dashboard, you would create a report. Okay, so that's how we can basically create a report in here, and you'll find in here, where is it? Maybe it's creating a report, and then it changes a bit. So go next. Oh, here we go. So the ID here is the source. So that's where you'll pull it in from, your third-party firewall. So if it's a known firewall, just import it from there, And then down the bottom here, you can pull it in from generic CEF files, W3C logs, and custom formats. So that is a once-off snapshot report, but you can also set it up to automate the pulling of logs or the pushing of logs from your firewall. So hopefully, Bill, that does answer that question. So you need the appropriate Microsoft Cloud App Security license to do that. Then you would set up either a pull or a push of those logs as a once-off or as an ongoing basis. But the far much easier option is if you put Defender for Endpoint on all your devices, they will report up automatically into the console for you. So that is a much better way to do it. Craig's question is, how quick are the events to show up failed login? So again, it does depend on the events. So generally in Sentinel, that's why I prefer Sentinel, they tend to show up quite quickly, but there can be some delays, right? It's not instantaneous. It's not like a Windows server where it's logging those things immediately to the local disk. Again, it is logging it to the local disk in the data center, but then it's got to push it to the console, and it does vary. But you know, my environment, I generally know a failed login within 15 minutes. So I will know when there's a failed login pretty quickly. And again, I don't necessarily want to monitor everything for a failed login, because if it's a failed login, why should I monitor it? So you need to adjust your rules to be appropriate and make sense. But it's not instantaneous, but they're on the march to make it faster and faster and faster. So for one of the commitments Azure Sentinel and the Microsoft Alerting System has agreed to is that they're going to try and get to near real time. I know, you know, there is the capability now in Azure to do that, but there obviously is a hit. So if you want to ingest things immediately, don't forget you'll be ingesting probably 99% of false positives, which will cost you money. So again, you need to weigh that up against, well, does it really matter if I know immediately? So again, there will be a cost if you want to ingest immediately, but the general answer is going to be about 15 minutes. Does enabling the 4 or 5 Microsoft Cloud conditional access baselines you mentioned earlier cover the security defaults? No. So security defaults, Steve, do enforce MFA for users, enforces MFA in all contexts for admins, blocks legacy auth, and there's one more which I can't remember. So Microsoft's recommended conditional access policies do that plus more. Okay, so, and then you can go to the next level with your devices. So if you've got Intune as well, so remember security defaults are on all tenants and don't necessarily include any device conditional access policies or country whitelisting or any of that sort of stuff. So the conditional access policies Microsoft recommends are security default and much better. So they are a step up from security default. So if you implement that, it's more secure than security defaults, I suppose is the way to say that. So if that's what you're asking, the answer is yes, it's security defaults plus on steroids. Okay. I think I've answered all the questions. Are there any other questions? We are over time. I do apologize for that, but hopefully you've got value out of hanging around. Okay, another question here. Device management for company iPad for any Apple device. Any issues you know of using Apple device management? Yeah, there's lots of problems doing that because you're mixing and matching Apple management of a device with Intune management of the device. My advice, as always, is stick to one vendor. Do one or the other. Can you do a hybrid? Of course you can do a hybrid, but be prepared for some frustration. If you do hybrid Azure or hybrid AD, does it work? Absolutely. Is it supported? Absolutely. Is it a pain? Absolutely. Are you better off having pure Azure AD? 100%. Same rule applies. When you add more complexity, you add more pain and more points of failure. So my advice is if you can, stick with one or the other unless you have to use the Apple one, don't use the Apple one. So, and that's just my feedback. But unless you're in an education situation where they require that, don't use the Apple one. Yep, Apple's 100% pain in the butt, 100% pain in the butt. Look, does it work? But it's, again, you've got to look at this and say, look, if I'm going to spend my valuable time somewhere do I really want to spend it worrying about setting up Apple, which I'm going to rarely use? Wouldn't it be better to spend it in the Microsoft sphere where I'm going to use it every day and probably translate from Apple to Android to Windows 10 and so on? So my advice is it's a better investment learning Endpoint Manager than it is learning Apple Device Manager. Okay, any other questions? Questions. So like I said, thank you very much. Thank the good people at Ingram. I will again make sure that all this material is made available to them very shortly. They will make that available to you, I would expect, early next week. And again, speak to them about getting access to the content. Not something that I control, so go and speak to them, obviously, about your access to that. Oh, why did that come up? That's not good. Close all tabs. Ran Internet Explorer. What do you know? So that will be made available as soon as I possibly can. But I would suggest probably next week is the time to be expecting that. I'm happy to answer any questions while we're waiting, but if you do have to head off, I do appreciate you sticking around and seeing us through. Again, as you can hopefully appreciate, there's a lot of information, and we really, didn't spend a huge amount of time or much on Windows 10 specifically, or application whitelisting, or app locker, or whatever. As you can appreciate, lots and lots of time on there. Okay, so Luke, everybody says thank you very much. So Luke seems to have a question currently for our clients who need to have a hybrid Windows 365 setup. We exchange installed on-prem in order to have complete control over email attributes. Well, yeah, good luck with hybrid. I'm not a fan. Now that free Exchange server licensing for hybrid deployments has been discontinued for Exchange, do you have any suggestions on how to manage email attributes under a hybrid setup? Yeah, move to Azure AD. Get rid of hybrid Exchange. I'm sorry, I have no other position. You should not be managing, you should not have an Exchange server on-prem. That's my position, end of story. Okay, I don't care. It's just too much trouble, too much hassle, too much limitations. Microsoft's telling you need to go to the cloud, and I'm going to echo that. Go to the cloud. Yes, that may not be the answer you like to hear, but that's what I focus on. That's where you're going to get the best result. That's when you're going to get the best integration. So my advice to you is, if you want some help with that, I would suggest you talk to the good people at Ingram. They'll be able to advise you or put you onto some of their advisors, or maybe refer you to a partner who's doing that. However, the caveat I will tell you is that anything on-prem is going to cost you a lot more, and will continue to cost you and your customers a lot more. That is the price you will pay for staying on-prem. If you're happy with that, if you've got the dollars, knock yourself out, but go and talk to the good people at Ingram, and they should be able to refer you on, or maybe liaise with Microsoft to do all that. So at the end of the day, my stance is there is no reason to have an on-prem Exchange server. There is no reason to have an on-prem AD server at all anymore in SMB. There is no reason. Eliminate them and your life gets so much easier. All right. Thank you, everybody. Are there any other questions or for other topics that I can rant about in my last couple of minutes here? Let's have a look here. Let's just see. Oh yeah, George is still there. You still there, George? You want to round us all off before I turn the recording off and give everybody peace and harmony for the weekend?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Just to reiterate, as soon as we get the recordings, we'll make them available as soon as possible. Thanks everybody for attending, and enjoy your weekend. And thanks again, Robert. Should also mention that your podcast is a must listen to. So the Need to Know podcast is for anybody that wants to keep up to date with what's going on.
Unsolicited, folks, unsolicited.
Yeah, only because it's really good.
Excellent. Thank you very much, George. Let me stop the recording there.